Tonight's presentation is just going to go through a few new things with OCAD, maybe here's some tips now and then, and try and present a little bit about what's new, and a little bit even about what we plan to do in the future. Yeah. So tonight I'm going to start off by talking about the Sketch app. And then after that, Hubert will be talking about some mapping features and some course setting features. We've structured it this way because I am officially working on the Sketch app, as you will see a little bit when I come to discuss various things. Whereas I'm not officially working on any of the older product, the traditional Windows desktop client. So I've just got a half a dozen slides just to talk about a couple of things to do with the Sketch app. So just for those of you who haven't used it before, hopefully it's fairly intuitive, but I thought I'd put in a little slide here explaining a little bit about the buttons at the top, specifically these three buttons, which sort of have double functionality, which can be quite useful. So the one on the top left, which can appear in two different states, one with a little N, like a north arrow, and the other one with a sort of an extent button. So that can rotate the map back to pointing north up the screen if the N is there, or it'll zoom out to the extent of the map if the other icon is visible. And then the two buttons on the right, the top one is with regard to moving the map to where you are if the device you're using does have a GPS. So if you just tap it once, it'll move to where you are, and if you double tap it, it'll actually keep moving the map as you walk around in the terrain, which means you don't have to keep reorientating. Well, keep moving the map at least. And then the second button actually does the rotation for you. So the first map will rotate the map to north, so it's aligned in the terrain for you. And then again, if you double tap that, it will keep it orientated as you turn around, as you're moving around. So effectively, if you double tap both of these buttons, regardless of where you move around in the terrain, it'll keep track of where you are. If, however, you do at any time sort of zoom out or pan or whatever, it'll lose that locking status and you'll have to double tap it again to get it back. But they're quite useful functions if you're moving around the terrain quickly. So some new things which have been added in the last 6 months since I've been here, with just a couple of bits of functionality. The first one is we added a scale bar, because it was realized that that it's difficult to know actually how big things are when you're zooming in and zooming out all the time. So that was added. And then the other thing we added was to allow background logging. And to do this, we were required to apply to both Google and Apple for permissions to allow this. So there are a few legal loopholes to jump through to get that implemented. And this can be used basically, well, the position logging in general can be used for both logging your position as well as turning on the button to the bottom right, which is this button here, if you can see my mouse, where you can generate a geometry, a line, basically following where you are, and that will end up being a sketch feature. which you can use as other sketch features. However, background logging, that enables you to, for example, if you were going to go for a run or a bike ride, to measure a track, to build a track network, for example, or if you're going to, basically you can start it running and basically put your phone in your pocket and cycle around or run around and generate the geometry, and it will keep doing that in the background while your device isn't actually on. Background logging is a little bit tricky because it's not supported in all devices. Obviously, it depends on the GPS, but also the age of the hardware. And sometimes actually the permission doesn't exist, but it'll work automatically because older devices didn't require the user to request this permission. And just a couple of technical things, and that is that the Sketch app tries to communicate with the device to set this property, but it doesn't always work. It's a little bit buggy. So you can actually go into either iOS or the Android settings for your device and set it to always. And another one, so that basically that'll override. Basically, the app will always use whatever the device permits, regardless of what the device might say. So, and it's the same with turning it off. You'll actually maybe have to go into the settings here if you want to then turn it off again. I don't think turning it off when the app always works. And basically these are problems I spent a week or two trying to work through and work around and to get this to work better. It's just not possible because of the programming interface between the OCAD Sketch app and the device is a bit not so friendly. So that's the two new features which I wanted to present. And then I just thought we'd do a little presentation about what we're planning to do in the future, because many people have queried for new functionality and adding new features and things to the Sketch app. However, due to various reasons, we're actually having to basically build a new app. And that's due to the fact that Microsoft are going to deprecate the technical environment that we use to build the Sketch app later this year. So we're going to rebuild the Sketch app using a new technology. And when we do that, we'll take the existing functionality, the Sketch app, and move that to the new environment, and then add lots of different things. And obviously, some of the things I've listed here. So editing, more than just sketches. So the idea is to hopefully be able to edit symbols, at least certainly simpler symbols, or maybe not with all of the functionality of all the different editing functionality that there is in the desktop, but certainly enough to be to be able to draw all the symbols, and at least in a relatively intuitive way. We're going to try and obviously build a user interface which is fairly intuitive. I've played around with Open Orienteering Mapper and have struggled a little bit to understand various functions there, so we'll try and make it intuitive. This development environment can actually be built, can be used to build software both for iOS and Android, but actually also Windows and Mac. So there might in time be a app version which will run on a Windows or Mac, say, for example, especially a Windows tablet or something like that. We plan to make it obviously multi-language and implement things like light and dark modes, etc. And then, so one of the other challenges, there's a couple of other challenges I just thought I'd show here, is the current Sketch app actually uses sort of bitmap pictures in the background, which means that the map actually looks a little bit jagged, and the geometries aren't sort of perfect looking. However, we've started to work on a new prototype for this new app, where we're actually drawing true vectors, and you can see the difference between these two bits of map. So on the right actually is the prototype app, which we currently can run now, which draws the geometries in a much nicer way. And then that's one of the challenges, is to get all the vectors drawing working well. And then the other challenge, which I've been focusing a lot on in the last few months, is how we can open very large OCAD files. So here I've just I've taken my prototype app and indicated here. You can see that I can zoom in very closely into a very small area, just to indicate that. So when you're zoomed out, it still looks okay, and then you can zoom in and you get the full vector geometries, which we then in time hope to be able to edit. So those are the things we're working on. There's no time plan for release as of yet, but it's looking quite exciting, and hopefully we'll end up with something which is really good and useful. And I think that's the end of my part of the presentation. So now I'll hand over to Hubert, unless anyone had any questions right now. I don't know or we can take those later.
I think we're probably best off taking them at the end, just
Cool.
so I can't see any immediately.
Yep. Okay.
Okay.
Over to you, Hubert.
So I will start sharing my screen. Just need to move the Teams screen to the other side that I can. Can you already see it, or? Okay.
Yeah, I can, Hubert.
Okay, fine.
I can see the presenter view side of it. I don't know whether that needs to be, if that's fine.
Need to go through the slides. Alistair showed. Okay. In the next around 15 minutes, I will show some new mapping features from the OCAD desktop application. Some of them are from this year, but some are also 1 or 2 years older. But I've chosen also things that probably are not known, and it's always the goal that you can detect things that you didn't know yet. So I will show some slides, and then I will also show things directly in the OCAD application. One function we added is this check of minimum distance dimensions. Not only not distance, sorry, minimum length and minimum area. It's in the when you're drawing or editing features, it's in the bottom left state of the status bar where you can see if your feature has the minimum size or if it's not large enough. If the minimum size is reached, then it will turn to green color. And you can turn this on in the OCAD preferences. I will show that directly later on the OCAD application. And there is also another option there where you can turn on this halo for point features. So if you are placing them, you can directly see the dimensions before placing it, so that the minimum distance will be okay. In the same field about legibility, which is an important topic for mappers, we added also an option for the check legibility tool, which was wished, I think, from Scandinavian mappers, which have a lot of form lines on their maps. And the option is that the minimum distance is also checked for contours. We didn't at first before, because in some terrains like Swiss steep terrain, the contours sometimes are that close. Like the image here is probably not perfect, because here it's steep. You cannot do it other way. But for the form lines and between custom contour and the form line, of course, should not be so close that they cannot see any difference if you're running. For the DEM, digital elevation model processing, there are different functions in OCAD, and you can create the contours and relief shading, and also this vegetation height maps. We added some color profiles. The one in the left was there from the beginning as a default setting, and then we had some feedback that especially for map revisions, where you have already the vegetation in the map from the old map, it's probably better to have other colors for this, to have a better contrast between the background and the map. And the one in the right is actually not a setting that you can load from in OCAD directly. That was a feedback from Bruce Bryant, that he uses these settings, which is pretty nearly the same as the default setting from OCAD, but it has these blue colors for the large trees, which can be a really good choice for some terrain where you have some trees that are large, and this is a good orientation in the forest. We added also a function that's I think 1 year ago, in December 22, that you can embed the raster images, some logos from sponsors or club logos on the map layout. In the past, they could only be added as link into, and then it was always a bit difficult if you shared the map with the course planner and other people. You always also had to send the logos, and then now you can embed them directly into the OCAD file, which makes it much easier to share the map. The other side is that the map probably becomes a bit larger, the OCAD file. So that's a good idea to check the image resolution. Sometimes these sponsored logos have very high resolution, that you can use that on the full screen or something, and then you can. It's a good idea to downsize the resolution, because on the maps typically they are just a few centimeters size, and not so large. There is also a function that probably is not that well known in the layout menu, where you can create QR codes. So there is you can enter a URL which will be transformed in such a QR code, which you can place on the map, probably for live results, or the one that is here at the right goes on the OCAD wiki to the page where this feature is the help page for this generate QR code feature. You can put in any URL you want. Then we added view option, which was a wish from some users, that they can turn on the mouse wheel. Zoom in, zoom out is just by scrolling up, down the mouse wheel, which is in the OCAD preferences. I'm so used to use the control key for that I don't use it, but yeah. From other apps, people are used to just with the mouse wheel to zoom in and out, and so it's an option to do that also in OCAD. Then another option, I will show that directly in OCAD because it's a bit complicated. Sometimes you have, when you're drawing the map, you want to toggle between probably the orthophoto and other backgrounds, and there is a second column in the Manage Background Maps window, this F for favorites, and in fact you can kind of in the preferences turn on this loop or two modes. Then you can toggle with a shortcut between them, and so we can toggle probably between a topographic map, background map, and I will show that in the application. Yeah, and of course we always try to update to the latest IOF specifications as soon as they are published. ISO 2017 is from 2019 mountain bike specifications 22. If you have a map that is probably 3 years old, with the first release of ISO 2017, and you want to update it to the latest release of ISO 2017, you can use this in the map menu, this update symbol set function, which updates the symbol set within the same specification. It does not update from very old ISO 2000 maps, but it's you need to use the map convert symbol set functions. Okay, so I think I will now switch into this OCAD. Okay, I have a few files open. First, I will just show this legibility settings that you can see them directly in OCAD. So all in the OCAD preferences. The drawing and editing on this page. Here at the lower part, you have this show legibility halo, which I've turned on, and this check IOF minimum dimensions. So in that case, I use the small depression here. I can place it with a certain distance, and also it's probably a bit small on the screen. I don't know if you can read it with the contrast, but yeah. If now I make it a bit bigger, and then it shows in green, no longer in red. Okay. And enlarge the small, especially the small areas which sometimes are too small and not according to specifications. Then I need to open an file. Okay, I wanted to show this V-mode loops. That's a map from the place where Alistair lives. Moose has prepared it that we can use it here. It's a sprint ice-prom map. I have in the background now an orthophoto, and I will also turn on probably take the vegetation base map, this one. And now for the orthophoto, I don't use these favorites option here. And now I'm in the draft mode. In this view, the orthophoto is, I go to this part where you can see it better, is displayed. And if I go to the draft mode only background favorites, it means that this background map here is not displayed. And then in this case, the vegetation base map is shown as a background map. And if I choose in the preferences these two modes, which is already done in my settings, and if I go set the shortcut, it's in view. Let's need to have a look. It's the first in the view. It's this view mode loop. I have done F12. Now I can, with F12 key or any other one you define, I can toggle between two background settings. So that sometimes, yeah, it's really practical to do this with one key and not read to the background maps and turn on, turn off, and all that stuff. Then one thing I like to show also, which was not in the slides, and probably not, it's not so well known, it's not new, it's I think 2 or 3 years old, that you can toggle between straight lines and curves. So if you have your straight line and you enter Control and Space key, hold down Control and Space key and then click, it will add here some Bezier curve handles, and you can switch to curve or back. So it's a toggle between that. It's really practical in the, I use it sometimes for vegetation features, or even more in not that one, on sprint maps where you have some, I just show it with that here, and probably if it's round, you can do that like that. Oh. Or yeah, if you have some buildings with one round sides, you can do it like that. Oops. Something. This is quite practical, and it's a similar one is with the vertex and the point types. So here I can, it's also the Control and Space key to toggle between normal vertex, dash vertex, and corner vertex. So this will, so the line dashes it has no influence with the normal. It's the dash point. There is a half dash length before and after. With the corner, it's a full dash length before and after. Yeah, I use that really often for map drawing, to toggle directly here and not to go to the toolbar with these buttons. And also, I think this is probably better known to Control Shift to add vertex control to remove. And one last, or not two things, last things I use. I don't use the context menu, but I use the right hand or the right mouse key for toggling between drawing and editing mode. And in this setting here, and in the drawing and editing, I have this first option on to use the curve mode, also for straight lines when clicking. That means I can drag if I want to draw curves, and then if I just click, it is drawing straight polylines. That's, I didn't want. I can just show another one. I use a lot of shortcuts, for example, Alt-C to change the symbol. Just as a inspiration, you can use any others. I have a lot of these Alt combinations for reshape and merge, fill, and change symbol, which is all the cut features, which is much faster. then always going to the toolbars and choosing the tool for that. Yeah, that was all for the mapping features, and I will switch back to the presentation. As we said that we will do the questions at the end. Course planning features. There are not so many that I will show or mention. Let's go down. Yeah. Course planning features in OCAD, new or newer ones. One which is here documented with a few screenshots is the canvas functionality, which was added around 1 or 2 years ago, 1.5, which can be used especially for events with different scales and map layouts. So you can define which classes or courses you use, which scale, which size for the control description, and which extent the range on the map. And so you can, all define this and produce all PDFs for the printing with one click at the end. That's really useful, especially for larger, bigger events with many courses, but also for smaller ones. It's really useful. And produce the PDFs on just one click, and so if you need to do some changes and to recreate the PDFs, it's before it was a bit, the risk for errors was quite big, and now it's much better. And then the main feature, which was released the last year in summer, is this Orienteering 2.0, which now calculates the fastest route, considering the distance, the relief, and the runnability. It's using a sort of weighted graph, and an estimated running time instead of the adjusted distance, which was before. Here on the right, you can see the visualization of the runnability. So the green areas make it slower, and the paths, the roads are the fastest ones. And yeah, it's a road or a kind of graph network, and it's some sort of standard algorithm for finding the best choice. Just an illustration for that. This Analyzer 2.0 requires a DEM, digital elevation model, and for that we introduced a new function to create the kind of optimized and compressed elevation model for course setting. And so the main difference to the custom DEM for the mappers is that the file size is by factor between 2 and 10, I think, smaller, and that it can be embedded into the map file directly, like we had it already with the layout images or the sponsor logos. And so it's easier to share the elevation model with the course planners, which use it now for the route analysis. And yeah, we had these latest changes in the IOF control description specifications, this map flip, which you can see here after Control 6, is another icon than the map change. And it's now defined the black color as default color for the control description, as the specification now recommends explicitly black as color for that. I think you had it already. In Switzerland, it was always purple, but I know that in other countries, black was used already before that. I will just show a short demonstration for the root analyzer. I need to choose a file. This is show. Just a short demonstration for this course here. Generally, for the root analyzer, you can define if it's calculated for the entire map area or just a part of it. And in the settings, you can choose if you want to use the elevation and the runnability. And you could also change the runnability factors, which now I just used the default values for that. And I now will calculate the fastest routes here on that course, which will take a few moments. Okay. And it's creating just a simple text file with all legs and the distance, the direct distance, and then for the distance on the route, the fastest, and then the accumulated distance, the climb, and the estimated time. The running time is it's a speed that is for elite runners, which is used. And if the screen now comes back, you can see the fastest routes. And there is another icon here with this plus, which can be used to calculate for alternative routes. And now it will calculate the fastest route, which will pass that point where I clicked. And so we can see that here it's 11 seconds faster than this one. I don't know if it's true, but at least interesting to see how, also for course planners, I think, if you have route choices, to check if they are similar or if it's so big difference that it's probably not a good route choice.
The red route here goes down and up a big hill, so I can certainly say it would be slower.
Yeah, it's the that would be interesting to calculate the same without the elevation, because then it's probably it's 10 meters more climb. But it's also some meters more distance. Yeah, it goes back at the beginning a bit. That's not it's good. Okay. Okay. Now I turn back to slide. Oh. Just okay, so sorry, we are at the end of the presentation. I'm not sure how it we should proceed.
I was going to say we can say thank you to Bruce for supplying us with some local maps from where I live.
Yeah, thank you, Alistair. Thank you, Bruce. It was really interesting to have the maps and also what you added as information for the backgrounds, this ordnance survey topographic maps. I think that's a good good hint. Probably I can show that too. I think it's this one here. The resolution is quite good. I'm zoomed in a lot here, so it's for precise maps. It's a really good base. I also loaded the OpenStreetMap from this area, and it was quite a big difference that this one is much more precise, and especially the buildings are not that good on OpenStreetMap. And also these ortho photos from Google. So very good. Which are really useful, I think. Thank you, Bruce, for providing them. And you had also another comment, which is probably interesting for the others. I should just move to the vegetation part here, the forest area. This is the default setting from the LiDAR point cloud manager in OCAD to produce this vegetation-based map, which is a bit more generalized. And you wrote us that you prefer a little bit more detailed setting, and that you also have some other thresholds for the what is it? The ground vegetation, the purple one and the green one. Yeah, that's interesting. That I think this is also very different in different terrain types, and that was new for me that you use these settings. Okay. I will end the slideshow and probably also the screen sharing. Oh.
Brilliant, and a huge thank you both Hubert and Alistair for the presentation. I was really enjoying just watching the watching the OCAD software. A lot of it way over my head still, but it's great to, even as somebody quite new to the software, it's really good to see the uses, and I'm sure for all those seasoned veterans, there'll be it's a good range of updates as well. Now's the time that we'd invite you to ask any and all questions. As we mentioned before, you have a few options, so you can either pop something in the chat where you all said your hellos previously, in the Q&A tab, which is also along that top bar, or you can click the raise hand function as well, and I'll call upon you to unmute your microphone and ask any questions. And we have the first one in already, which I'll read out. So this is somebody playing with Klaus has asked that he's been playing with normalized difference vegetation density, statistical analysis of LiDAR data, which is great, but you do need extra input from, for example, vegetation height. This could be something good for deep learning AI. Are you considering implementing anything like this? Who's brave? Who's bravest?
Alistair, do you want to answer?
No.
No.
We've discussed the use of AI at OCAD, interestingly, a little bit in the last 6 months. And that's come about, obviously, because there's been questions like this, but also the fact that I've actually worked in the field of AI for about the last half dozen years, but in a completely different field. The short answer is no, we haven't considered this yet, but maybe. I always, when people ask me questions about AI, my standard answer is you just have to remember that AI is really just statistics, and smart statistics applied in whatever field. So yeah, I'm sure it's possible. Yeah, if there's demand, then I'm not sure if how Hubert feels about, or the company feels about developing something in that direction. I'm not sure.
Yeah, as Alistair said, there are no specific plans at the moment for that. It's also a question of resources and knowledge, probably, to where we want to put the main focus. And the focus, I think, is really more on this development of the sketch app, that it can be used also for mapping features and to extend that. And yeah, it's an interesting field for sure, but there are no specific plans at the moment. Yeah,
I can say, just to draw a parallel to another feature which has been added recently, and that's the route analyzer. That in the development of the route analyzer, we've had questions regarding, for example, could you set it up for different speeds of runners, not just elite? And obviously in the configuration, you can set different properties for different types of terrain. So green in one place, say a green in Scandinavia, you can often run through it sort of maybe at 50-60% of your speed, whereas the green, say in the UK, you might be down to 20% of your running speed. And just like I said, I was going to draw a parallel, and I can say with the AI configuration, if you use that applied to vegetation, you would have very similar constraints that you would have to set up based on the different types of vegetation you have locally. Yeah, to make it useful. So yeah, something which might work statistically in one place maybe wouldn't work so well somewhere else. So yeah, it's challenging.
Brilliant. Thank you for the good answer on just a light question to start us off. And I know that Klauser has said in the chat, just that it was interesting how different inputs were required. Sort of mentioning that Scottish light green, this might be pretty awful. The next question that we had was from Craig asking, for the route analyzer, how can he make a feature impassable, like a fence, passable, if he wants to make a specific, a specific crossing to occur through that?
You mean you have a passable fence, just a normal fence, and you want that the route analyzer does not cross it? Is that the question?
It may be the opposite of that. It may be that something previously impassable, he wants to be able to make passable in place.
Okay. I'm sure that it works if you make some kind of marked route or things, but that's not what you want, I think. Probably it's already enough if you add this passage, how is it called? Symbol. I think you have this in UK for the walls, or in Scotland or Ireland.
A crossing point.
The crossing point. Sorry, yeah, that was the one I was looking for. Or at least yeah, I would try it with that, but to be honest, I'm not sure if it works.
Really testing you there. I think, as you said, as Alistair said the words crossing point, I think Craig popped in the chat asking whether a crossing point symbol would work. So that sounds like it'll be a good solution, at least to go for in the first place. And then if you do have any problems, Craig, I'm sure you can go back to Hubert and see if you can make his head hurt anymore with the possible solutions. There's a question in the chat from Stephen, but that was asking more, I suppose, more widely about other OCAD users with the experience of the new Teams licensing. I know that there's been a little bit discussion in the chat about it, but I don't think that's so much. I think in there possibly there may be a question of if like that Teams software, the Teams license uses the cloud for transferring data between with the context of a club scenario with several mappers occasionally doing it rather than one or two. But I don't know whether that's more a question for just everybody, other participants, or for yourselves. If there is anything at all, I suppose. Besides that, I'll put out an extra call. Excuse me, if there are any extra questions in the chat or with a raised hand. But otherwise, you may have gotten off somewhat lightly, I say, after a couple lengthy questions.
With regard to licensing, we have had internal discussions, at least in the last 6 months since I've been there, about trying to find other licensing models which might suit certain users. But there's nothing being decided yet, but it's something which we're always thinking about.
Yeah, that's perfect. And there's one more coming from Ian. There we go. Another route analyzer one. With route analyzer, does it depend how the map is drawn? For example, in an urban area, some mappers use a brown paved underlay and draw on top of that so that there can be a layered map, where some mappers will draw the roads and paths and then fill in between. Does route analyzer work the same regardless of those situations, or does it need a certain setup, I guess, in these urban areas?
Good question. The most important is that you use the standard symbol sets according IOF specifications, and then I would say it doesn't matter. In fact, the root analyzer just uses the symbol which is at the top. So if you have, for example, a light brown area over the whole map, and you put everything above it, the yellow and all the other colors and buildings, that doesn't matter. That's no problem. So it's using just the one that is on top. That's the short answer.
Excellent. I suppose with no new questions in the chat, obviously, apart from that one with Ian, I'll get towards wrapping things up here. And if any more do come through after this point, I'll get them over to you both in an email. If anybody does have any more questions, I'll be following up tomorrow with our feedback form, and there is some space on there to be able to ask extra questions, and I can get them sent over to Hubert and Alistair. I will also include a contact email for OCAD tomorrow. If that's okay with you guys, whether that's just the general one, and then you can also get questions over that way. But in that case, Craig has asked if we could have the slides distributed. Are you happy for that? And I can attach them to that email tomorrow. Yep, that's perfect. I'll attach them then as well tomorrow, so that also bulks it up as well. But at that point, a huge thank you to both Hubert and Alistair for taking the time out. It's been brilliant to have you as part of the development conference for this session. As I said before, that will all go out tomorrow, including this session being uploaded to YouTube. And that should be up tomorrow, pending any good editing skills of my own. The next session that I will shamelessly plug is coming up tomorrow, and that is the facts about our impact on nature, which will be based on the ecological report that we've done over the past year with Emma Monkman from British Orienteering, who's our Environments and Access Officer. For anything else development conference related, I'm going to pop in a few extra links in the chat now before we wrap everything up, but that will just be my email address, Howard's email address, and where you can see the session bookings and also the YouTube links. Otherwise, thank you very much all for attending. A huge thank you again to Hubert and Alistair from OCAD, and have a good evening. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. True.